Anjanashalaकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपा कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वापदान्तिकं। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातां सहगना रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपदान् सहगना ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगतपते गोपेशा गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमोस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषा शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंदा हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे मुकुं करोति वाचालं पङ्गुं लङ्घयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरुं दीनतारिणं परमानन्दमाधवं श्रीचैतन्य ईश्वरम्। Hare Krishna, thank you all for joining. Sorry, we are having virtual session today. I'm actually in New Vrindavan, but I didn't want to miss the session we missed last week as well. So thank you for joining. I'm going to share my PowerPoint. This time we are going to use Radheshyam Prabhu's PowerPoint presentation. Anyhow, I was making custom based on that, but I thought we can use those materials. Screen share. Okay, it's coming. Sorry. Can you all see my screen?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yes. Okay, wonderful. Sorry, 1 second. Yeah, thank you. So we until last week or last week actually covered karma, vikarma, and akarma. That was up to the verse 24. Today we are talking about verse from 25. Let's see how much we can cover. Hopefully we'll try to cover it till 33, but I don't know how much we'll cover based on the time we have or based on how I get carried away by the topic. But this is the purpose of this session is to understand the goal of sacrifice. Sorry, let me cut this. Goal of sacrifice is freedom from misery and loving service to the Lord. Now, this section is specifically talking about different yogas, understanding the process of them, so that we can appreciate what Bhakti Yoga provides to the table. So that's what we are going to dive into. Again, very grateful for joining. So what is going to be covered from verse 25 to 33 is specifically talking about the goal of different yoga, the yoga system which is given, why there are variety of sacrifice, how to do them, and what is the result of that. This is very important because this is going to basically deep dive into different aspects of yoga and also talk about how to practice that yoga, and that's the whole point. So what you see on the left hand side is the goal, which is talking about the varieties of sacrifices. When we talk about sacrifices here, we are talking about not just the yajna, but actually voluntarily, voluntarily sacrificing something, and we will see that part. So variety of sacrifices are described in the verse 25 to 33, which are described in Vedas. They are all coming from Vedas, right? So what is the goal for them? The first goal is to control the senses. Now this is very important. When Srila Prabhupada was there, there was a very very well-known music band called as, and their name was also very glamorous. The name was the Fugs. So the people were crazy about them, and they would sing the songs which are so passionate, specifically talking about the opposite sex attachment and attraction and all that stuff. So breaking the four principles. So when they came to Srila Prabhupada, so they were willing to hear, and Srila Prabhupada talked about how to chant, why to chant, and all that stuff. And they were so far completely aligned with what Srila Prabhupada is telling. Some devotees who were there in the room who brought them, they were sincerely praying that Srila Prabhupada does not talk about four regulative principles, which are actually no meat eating, no meat eating and intoxication, no illicit sex, no gambling, and no intoxication. That's the fourth one. So they were thinking, hope Srila Prabhupada doesn't talk about that, because their whole purpose is about intoxication and illicit sex. So Srila Prabhupada spoke, and then he was about to finish it off at the time, but you must follow these four regulative principles. And these guys just put their heads down and then left from the room. So very difficult to actually bring that idea of controlling the senses. So that's the first purpose of the first goal of performing sacrifices. The yoga which we see in the Western world or even in India today is actually just talking about the bodily exercises and all that stuff. That's just one part of it. But the yoga really means is to connect to God. You perform those activities to better control your senses and mind. But what's the point of controlling the senses and mind? The purpose of controlling the senses and mind is to actually practice meditation, practice bhakti yoga. That's the whole purpose is all about. So that's what we will see when you perform. What is the goal of these sacrifices? Is one is to control the senses. The second goal, which is what we are doing right now, is to gain transcendental knowledge. What kind of knowledge? Not the knowledge which keeps us here in the material world, birth after birth, but the knowledge which actually takes us, delivers the soul from the cycle of birth and that death. That is actually the transcendental knowledge we are talking about. And the third goal is devotional service, which is specifically bhakti. So when we see these variety of sacrifices, why do we do sacrifices? Because sacrifices leads to transcendental knowledge, which is what is being identified here. And why do we control senses? Like I says, this purifies one of all the sins and makes one happy. Why? There are two purposes or two things everyone is looking in this material world. Everyone wants to be happy, and nobody wants suffering. Nobody wants misery. And this is the specific thing which is talking about. Once one controls the senses and mind, of course intelligence is above that, but once one controls the senses and mind, one is not distracted, or one is not affected by what happens beyond the bodily platform, which is very important here. And what is the second goal, which is of transcendental knowledge, is to explain how sacrifices uncovers Brahman, which is a spiritual nature, and reveals transcendental knowledge. And why there are variety of sacrifices? Because, like for an example, someone likes pasta, someone likes Mexican, someone likes spicy. So there is variety, right? Variety is the mother of innovation, or however they call it as. What is that? Variety is the mother of, anybody remember what is that?
Necessity is mother of innovation. That
Ah,
is
that is one. Variety is also something to that, right, Madhaji? I forgot, but thank you for bringing that. Something related. So why?
varieties, flavor of life.
Okay, that's another one. Thank you, thank you, Monica Madhaji. So different people have different inclination. Not that everyone like dal rice. So there are certain flavors which are given. So specifically, these sacrifices are given. Ultimately, we want to bring everyone to Krishna consciousness. Ultimately, everyone wants to come to that platform, realizing we are not the body, we are the soul. And that's why for certain people, some sacrifices are more this thing. Like you see, certain people are very good with controlling senses and mind, which is very rare in today's days, but there are people like that. But there are some, for them bhakti yoga is the easiest, or for some they want to do charity, they want to do karma yoga, and it's with different. So there are different types of options there. So different types of sacrifices are appropriate for different types of worker, according to one's position in varnashram and their level of realization. This is an important part. And how to do it? We perform sacrifices in consciousness mentioned in 19 to 23, which we covered previously, which is specifically focusing on karma, vikarma, and akarma. So that's how one has to understand. And what is the result? one realizes Brahman. What is Brahman in this case? Is one realize the soul. I am not the body, I am the soul, and I am just a minute soul, but there is a super soul. And that's what we actually talk about. Any questions or comments in this section before we jump in into individual verses? Okay, looks like no. So we are 4.25. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate
Bhagavate
Vasudevaya.
Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om
Om
Namo
Namo Bhagavate
Bhagavate
Vasudevaya.
Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo
Om Namo
Bhagavate
Bhagavate
Vasudevaya.
Vasudevaya.
So we are reading 4.25. Daivam eva pare yajnam
Daivam
Devam
Eva
Eva Pare Yajnam.
Pareyajnam
yogina paryupasate
Yogina
Yogina
Pariyupasate
Paryupasate.
brahmagnava pare yajnam
Brahmaknava
Brahmanava Pariyajnam.
Pareyajnam
yajnaivopajuhavati.
Yajnaivopa Juhavati.
Beautiful. So what is the connection of this section to the previous verse? Srila Ramanujacharya explains that Sri Krishna, after explaining how karma takes the form of knowledge, we read it in the previous section. Now he specifically focuses on various kinds of karma yoga, right? And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says here about many types of yajna or sacrifices. The Lord explains this in 8 verses. So these are the 8 verses which are talking about different sacrifices which are performed. Can someone read the translation? I don't have it in on this PowerPoint. Can someone read that? Does anyone have Bhagavad Gita?
Yeah, I can read.
Go ahead, Manji.
Some yogis perfectly worship the demigods by offering different sacrifices to them, and some offer sacrifices in the fire of the Supreme Brahman.
Very nice, thank you. So this is specifically talking about different kind of devotees or different kind of worshippers. One are offering the sacrifices to demigods, and we talked about that long back, which we talked about the cycle, where we talked about the devatas are supposed to be offered back, and that's how the whole cycle finishes in terms of that's how we get grains, and when we eat, that's how we get nourishment, and again we offer the yajna. And second is actually one who understand the Yagneshwara is Lord Vishnu himself, and they directly offer to Lord Vishnu. So, if we see from this perspective, so what you see here, the primary division of sacrifices are two. One is the sacrifice for worldly possession, which is what we were just speaking about. Why do you do demigod worship or devata worship? So that you can get material gains. For an example, you perform Ganesha so that everything goes peacefully and all that stuff. You worship Mother Lakshmi so that you get money, and there are various devatas for various purposes and all that stuff, right? So I'm just going to put this in mute. Yeah. So that's the primary division, which is sacrifice for the worldly possession. And what is the second level of sacrifices? Sacrifice in pursuit of transcendental knowledge. One that means one wants to deliver the soul. Currently, our soul is inside the body, and it is going through the difficulty, going through the challenges based on our mind. Body is again of two type, which is gross body and subtle body. When we talk about the subtle body, which is about the mind, intelligence, and ego, because of that the soul goes through difficulty. Now let me give you one example. How does that work? So for an example, somebody hits your car, and again that's more common in India, but say somebody hits your car and you get angry and you beat this guy. Now this guy is really hefty. He gives you another punch back and you actually fall down 6 feet far away, and you realize, why did I make that mistake? You didn't do it, but your mind told you to do that. Now when you tell your mind, sorry, just so when you tell your mind is because of you, mind says I have nothing to do with it. So imagine the same mind is living within us, and that becomes the cause of our difficulty. We become enemy of ourselves. Today Maharaj was speaking in morning class. We actually become enemy of ourselves, and that's the point. But when you sacrifice in pursuit of transcendental knowledge, you are thinking about getting out of cycle of birth and death. You want to relieve your soul from this temporary designation. You want to relieve this soul, and you want to give that higher nature or understanding what is the real nature of the soul. That It wants to be the servant of Krishna, and it wants to do everything some siddhi haritoshanam, everything for the pleasure of the Lord. And that's how the sacrifices. And what is the aim of sacrifices? One, but varieties differ superficially. For an example, different categories of sacrifice by different type of performance only superficially demark their varieties. Ultimately they are doing the same thing, which is ultimately pleasing Krishna, but one is doing a direct way, second one is doing indirect way. Like factual aim of all sacrifices to satisfy the Supreme Lord, which is I just now told Samsiddhir Haritoshanam, who is also known as Yajna. So what happens is the people who are in mode of goodness, they are actually at the zero. When we talk about the negative quadrant, positive quadrant, and zero. So what happens is you, if you are practicing any of that material processes, then basically it is just bringing you to zero. And if you are just performing any activity which is not based on scriptures, you are going into negative access. And if you are performing a spiritual process, that is basically a positive access. And this is an important aspect. So if I'm not practicing spirituality, and of course that doesn't apply to any of you, people in general, they may think, oh yeah, I'm happy, I don't need spiritual, I don't need God in picture. That's not true, because you are still living in zeroth quadrant, right? So what is the comparison of this is very important slide which is being spoken here. So what you see here, there are three sections. So comparison of various sacrifices. So one is demigod worshippers, which is devata worship. So what do? You sacrifice material possessions for material enjoyment. Now let me give you an example about such people. They um sorry, yeah, what they do is actually they don't want to enjoy in this material world, because they think, oh, this is making me entrapped in this material world. There is a higher enjoyment into heavenly planets, so better I would go there. So what is their purpose of sacrifice? They want material possessions for material enjoyment. And some people want to do certain activity even in this material world to please the devata, so that everything sukha sampatti ghar aave kastamate thanka. That's their thought. They worship the demigods for various material benefits and are called Bahuishwaravadi, which means believers in many gods. And that's very similar, that's very interesting concept, and that's only there in Hinduism. You don't see that in anywhere else. The, the second part, which is impersonalist, what is their understanding is they sacrifice own self. Sorry. Um, they sacrifice own self into the fire altar of the Supreme Brahman. What is Supreme Brahman is actually the Brahman Jyoti which is emanating from Krishna's body. And they regard the forms of demigod as temporary, because they understand that these devatas are appointed people. So they understand their position is temporary, which is at least that part is good. And what they do is sacrifice their material designation and their individual existence by merging into existence of Supreme. What they want to do is they realize God is life. You are God, I am God. One day we all become God. That is what the impersonalist philosophy is all about. And sacrifice their time in philosophical speculation rather than directly practicing a process. This is one of the things which you also see in other people as well. When you ask them to chant Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, because this is given by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he said this is the only way to get out of the cycle of birth and death, especially in Kali Yuga we are living in. Very difficult for them to penetrate. They say, oh, why not this mantra? Why not that mantra? Why not to chant this way or that way? And this is one thing which is all about. The third one is the perfect yogi or first class mystic yogi is Krishna conscious devotee. What happens in this? One sacrifices all material possessions and own self for Krishna's satisfaction, which means doing everything for pleasure of Krishna, because when Krishna is pleased, automatically everything else will be taken care of. Right? This is an important part which is being described here. I'm just going to close this. Okay, thank you. So this is the important part. Like an example, Arjuna sacrifices everything for satisfaction of Krishna. That is a first class yogi without losing his existence. Not that we will become one with Brahman, we will become one with God. We are individual people, we are individual soul, and we remain individual soul. Krishna remains the super soul. But when we go to spiritual world, we do not merge into Krishna, but we serve Krishna as an individual. And that's an important part which is being spoken here. Any questions on this chart? Any questions or comments on this chart? Okay, looks like no. So now Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur writes in the purport, what you see is that example which we are talking about, they are doing worship for pleasure of Lord Vishnu and here Devata worship. So Karma Yogis, Daivam refers to that in which Devatas like Indra and Varuna are worshipped. Ramanujacharya says this meaning is that they have steadfast devotion only in this. So this is Karma Yogi who wants to do everything nicely as per the scripture so that they can live so called happily in this material world, right? In the Devata worship, it is indicated here that there is a lack of consciousness to Brahma, which means they don't realize something beyond demigod worship, which is just in the view of material world. Sridhar Swami says Eva indicates that Indra and others are not viewed as considered as demigods. So Jnana yogis, first we covered Karma yogi, now we are getting into the Jnana yogi. What is the meaning of Jnana yogis? Baladev Vidya Purushan Ramanujacharya says they are absorbed in offering oblations of ghee and grains into the fire which represents Brahman using the yagna, which is Yagna Kund, right? So what they understand is they understand the goal is Lord Vishnu. The first one, the Karma Yogi, they think that their goal is worshipping demigod and they want to stay here. They may be going into the heavenly planet or they can stay here material world peacefully in whatever planet they are in. So that's the one thing. And now this is higher where they actually accept Lord Vishnu is the supreme goal. But Srila Prabhupada writes there are different type of sacrifices but different performance. Actually, sacrifice means to satisfy Supreme Lord Vishnu, who is also known as Yagna. Sorry, the Sanskrit word did not came correctly, but he is the Yagneshwar from that perspective. So this is Jnana Yogi. Now, if you these are the two verses we covered so far, and now we will slowly go into the Bhakti Yoga ladder. Any questions so far? Am I going too fast? Are you with me?
It's a good pace, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Okay, beautiful. So now we are in 426. Shrotadinandriyani anye
सूत्रादीन्यान्यन्ये
samyamyagneshu juvati
संयम्याग्नेषु जुह्वति
shabdadin vishayan anya sorry
शब्दादीन् विषये अन्य
indriyagneshu juvati.
Indrayagneshu
इन्द्रियाग्नेषु
Juvavati.
जुह्वति
Thank you. Any volunteer for reading the translation, please, from Bhagavad Gita?
I can read again.
Go ahead, Manaji.
Some, the unadulterated brahmacharis, sacrifice the hearing process and the senses in the fire of mental control, and others, the regulated householders, sacrifice the objects of the senses in fire of the senses.
Very nice. So what you see on the right hand side are two type of, when you talk about Varna and Ashrama, so two most prominent one, and even in second is more prominent today. So one are brahmacharis and second are grastas. They both do sacrifices but in a different way. So for sacrifice of brahmachari is sacrificing the hair process to end the senses in the fire of mental control. They are very strong and their whole idea is about to do sense and mind control. And for a householder like all of us here in the class, what is the sacrifices is actually the regulated life, living a regulated life. Sacrifice the object of senses in the fire of the senses, which means one cannot control the senses, but one can regulate the senses, which is what is being spoken in this. So what you see here, the purpose of Varna, which is Brahmana, Brahmana, Grasta, Brahmacharya, Grasta, Vanaprastha and Sannyas, mean to become perfect yogis or transcendentals. Not that only the brahmacharis are supposed to take it. So for brahmachari, what is that? They hear, what is their hearing process? Only words concerning Krishna consciousness, especially engage fully in Harer Namanu Kirtanam, which is chanting and hearing the glories of the Lord. This is a very important process, which is basically not to be distracted by the material energy of the Lord, and reducing our kshetra, reducing our radius on the material life, majorly spending our time, brahmachari specifically speaking about here, is to actually read scriptures and performing full time devotional service, which is restraining himself or herself, mostly himself, from the vibrations of material sounds. Like I said, reducing the diameter of material world and control the mind by staying under care of a bona fide spiritual master and abstinence from sense gratification, regulated eating, of course, no sex life there, and other things as well, which is the mind control, waking up early and then taking care of those things, is a very austere life. And hearing is the basic principle of understanding, which is very important. One engages the ears in hearing about Krishna, and based on that, practicing that path. And what is on the other side? What are the sacrifices for grasta? The householders who have some license for sense gratification perform such acts with great restraint, which is whether even uniting with the opposite sex, just restraining that, making sure it's only for the recreation purpose. Second, of course, second type is defined here, which is sex life, masturbation, or meat eating are general tendencies of human society. Regulated householder does not indulge in unrestricted sex life and other sense gratification. So one has to actually come to that platform, like I was giving in the beginning example. Come to the platform and we will get there about four regulated principle. And what is a yajna? It's a yajna because the restricted householder sacrifices his general tendency towards sense gratification for higher transcendental life, which is the tendency to enjoy is there. One time Srila Prabhupada was asked by one of the reporter, what is the purpose of life? Srila Prabhupada said, enjoy. But that enjoyment today is put into a wrong place versus the right place. So it's not about the enjoyment has to be restrained. It is about enjoyment at the right place, not which is aligned with dharma. This is what is being spoken here, right? So what is the dharma of grasta life? Yes, there is license given to actually certain activities, but one has to control that, and that's the point which is being spoken here. For an example, of course, we read the translation. So what you see, Naishtika Brahmachari, or sorry, somehow the Sanskrit words did not came properly. So householder or less controlled brahmacharis. The second one is the offer the senses such as ear into the fire of the controlled mind, which is offer the sense objects such as sound into the fires of senses. You see on the top Hanuman, who is a brahmachari, and then you see grastas who are actually coming and worshipping Krishna together. So they are like, generally it happens is we have a temple room maybe in some corner of the house, and the house, he said, this is our house, this is the temple. But actually our house does not belong to us, our house belongs to Krishna. We are just, Krishna is allowing us to stay with him. That's how should be the attitude. So what is that brahmachari? This means that the senses completely disappear in the pure mind. One is living a life of very controlled life. Excuse me, the sense object disappear in the senses. This means that the senses stop functioning in relation to external objects, turning inward when the mind attains samadhi. Very powerful process, very powerful. I'm of course not on that side, but I've seen certain brahmacharis, even our Yogal Kishore Prabhu. What a sense control actually. Not that the mind does not ask for things, but one knows how to ignore the mind. This means that the sense context, sense object remain detached. That one eats even to just maintain the body, not just for enjoying the senses. Sridhar Swami, right? Restraining the senses, they predominantly lead a life of sense control, which is Ramanuja started. They abstain from the sense object even when they are allowed to be near by the discriminative process of belittling their value or enjoyable nature. This is an important part. One has to come to that part. So all four ashrams are meant to become perfect yogi or transcendentalist. Very sublime process actually. Whether we want or we do not want, voluntarily we have to do sacrifice. For an example, when we are living a spiritual life, or whenever we are living certain, even forget about the spiritual life, even living a material life, when certain diseases come, there is a limitation on what we can eat or what we cannot eat. For an example, if someone catches sugar, even if one likes to eat sweets, one avoids that. Why? because I'm forced to not eat that, because otherwise I'll get even more sick. So whether we do voluntarily or whether we do involuntarily, there is some sacrifice, even for people like who participate in Olympic, or there was a FIFA World Cup just happened in New York. Irrelevant, these players have a very tough regime to follow, what time to wake up, what to eat, what not to eat, how much to practice, and all that stuff. But they are doing it for higher material enjoyment, and we are doing it for higher spiritual enjoyment. That's the difference. So these brahmachari or students under the care of bona fide spiritual master, they control the mind by abstaining from sense gratification. A brahmachari hears only words concerning Krishna consciousness, right? And he restrained himself from vibrations of material sounds, and hearing is engaged in transcendental sound vibration of Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Like you see this beautiful picture down, Srila Prabhupada is speaking. So many orange brahmacharis are there, and they are mostly Western disciples of Srila Prabhupada who never heard about Krishna. And in America, we all know all these four principles are broken left and right. But imagine wearing these orange robes. What to talk about leaving tea, coffee, meat, eating illicit sex. But more than that, actually waking up more before even 4 a.m., taking a cold bath, practicing such a sense control life. How is that possible? That's the beauty. You see on the top, these are six Goswamis, very powerful. These are actually the Sakhis of Srimati Radharani. So they, in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Leela, they came into six Goswamis form. They were trillionaires during that period of time. But they left everything, took the life of renunciate, and they lived the life only for pleasure of Krishna. So that's the whole point. So we covered brahmachari. What is the householder? Have some license for sense gratification, perform such act with great restraint. Sex life, intoxication, and meat eating are general tendency of human society. But a regulated householder does not indulge in unrestricted sex life and other sense gratification. Marriage on the principle of religious life is therefore current in all civilized human society. Right? This is what is being spoken about Grahastha life. Any questions or comments before we move to next verse? Okay, looks like we are all aligned. Hope am I going with the right pace? You are all along with me, or did I lose you?
All along with you, Prabhuji.
We are good. Thank
Okay,
you.
okay, just making sure. We are reading 4.27. Sarvandriya karmani
Sarvandriya
Sarvandriya
karmani
Karmani
prana karmani chapare
prana
Prana
karmani
Karmani
chapare
Chapare
atma samyamya yogadnyo
atma
Atmasam
Atma
Yam
samyam
Samyam
yoga
Yogyano
Yoganyo
jyuvati jnana deepite.
Jyuvati
Yuvati
Jivati
Jnana
Jnana
Deepite.
Dipite.
Dipite.
Any volunteer for translation, please?
Okay, I'll read again. um,
Otherwise,
oth-
you will rely on Super Jamaat.
Others who are
Go ahead,
interested in
Madhu. Thank you.
achieving self realization through control of mind and senses offer the functions of all the senses and of the life breath as oblations into the fire of the controlled mind.
This is getting into more detail on sense control and mind. Just want to spell this out. Remember that we are not talking about bhakti yoga here. We are talking about the karma yoga and jnana yoga, specifically talking about that. Now, you will see just couple of sides down the line, sense control and mind control is automatic byproduct of bhakti. One does not have to practice it separately. When one practices bhakti very sincerely, automatically the sense control and mind comes in. So one does not have to practice this separately. So don't, just want to give you an encouragement, not discouragement. So what you see is there are two kind of austerities one has to perform. One is called as paragatma and second is pratyagatma. So as long as the soul is attached to sense enjoyment, it is called as paragatma. Like you see this person, these senses are actually dragging him to perform various activities. eat various food, attracted by various activities, objects of the senses, because the soul is attached to sense enjoyment. Now, what is the purpose of why it is says as long as the soul is attached? Because the soul thinks I am the body, which means whether it's a gross body or subtle body, it thinks that, which means it thinks sense enjoyment is going to give me the pleasure, which is not true. Second is the Pratyagatma. As soon as the same soul becomes detached from such sense enjoyment, it is called as Pratyagatma. This is the ultimate goal. The Pratyagatma is withdrawn from the activities of matter. And again, I'm trying to spell this again and again and again. Not that the mind will not ask for certain pleasures. The mind will keep asking based on the conditioning, based on our inclination, based on our proclivity. But one learns how to say no. I'm unqualified to say that because I also have my own challenges, so I want to confess that here. The Patanjali system of yoga instructs one on how to control the functions of body's air in technical manner. So the ultimate, all of the functions of air within become favorable for purifying the soul of material enjoyment. Now this is going to Ashtanga yoga, or also called as Patanjali yoga. So in Patanjali yoga, in Patanjali yoga, sorry, one second. Yeah, just oops. Yeah, okay, thank you. In Patanjali system, there are actually 8 things which you have to perform. Not that you can just perform the yoga, which is they call it Hatha yoga, but one has to actually control the senses and mind. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, there is a slide just come the line into the fire of the soul, which is fire of the soul lit by knowledge. Others knowledge of whom the super soul offers the activities of all senses, such as hearing and seeing, as well as the activities of 10 pranas into the fire of purity. So there are 10 vayus or 10 airs which flows through our body. So what is Ashtanga Yoga is talking about is controlling those 10 airs. Atma here refers to the soul than the mind, because offering sense to the mind has already been started in verse 26. So now they are actually coming to the platform of controlling the mind. So these yogis make the mind, intelligence, senses, and the entire 10 vayus, the pranas, disappear. What is the meaning of disappear? Disappear means as good as they don't exist. They control it super thoroughly. And this is one of the way Bhishma Pitama left his body, because he controlled all of them. They think that the only soul perceiving inwards exists, not anything else such as mind or other things. They only can connect with soul, and they see soul exists. Other than soul, nothing exists for them. Very beautiful platform to be in. But one gets automatically so what you see here, which I was talking about, these are the Vayu and Udana Vayu. These are different airs which are flowing through our body. And what the yogis do is actually bring this kundalini to the head and tries to leave the body when it actually the soul reaches to this platform and leaves from here, because then it can go to the higher planets. That's the principle. So the soul is subjected to the functions of 10 kinds of air at work within the body, and this is perceived through the breathing system. So their breathing system, and that's what even some of the Ashtanga yoga, you may know, they talk about breathing exercise. Patanjali yoga specifically. So Patanjali system instructs how to control functions of body's air in the technical manner, so that ultimately all the functions become favorable for purifying the soul of material attachment. This is through that experience one can actually go beyond that platform. This is what is actually mentioned here. Like you see this pranic body, which is talking about these life airs, where they are located from that perspective. It shows nice pattern there. Again, I'm going to skip that this is talking about different vayu and then different prana from that perspective, so we understand that part. Like you see naga, which is regulated burping, governs blinking, governs sneezing, controls yawning, controls the functioning of heart. They can control all that stuff through Ashtanga yoga, which is very difficult to practice. This is another one, which is how to actually perform those pancha prana, which is udana, samana, prana, and apana, which we spoke about before. So going to skip that one, this one as well. And the last one which I wanted to share, they endeavor to prevent the mind from getting attached to the function of senses and vital breaths. They can control through the breathing exercise, they control the mind, they control the senses, and the only thing they perceive is the platform of the soul which is being spoken here. Any questions or comments? Is it too much? Is it too difficult?
No.
All good?
Yes.
Okay, okay. We'll read verse 28. Dravya yajna stapo yajna
Dravya yajna tapo
Yajna.
yajna.
No.
yoga yajna statha pare
Yoga
Yoga
Yogayajna
yajna
Yajna
tatapare.
Tathaspare
Yajante
swadhyaya jnana yajnascha
Swadhyaya
Svadhaya Gyana
jnana
Yajnascha
yajnasya.
Yajnasya
yatya samsita vrata sorry yata yatya samsita vrataha.
Yatya
Yatya
Samsita
samsita
Vrataha
Yatya
Very nice. Any volunteer for translation or Supraja Mataji is reading? Sorry, I wasn't able to edit this PowerPoint, so I couldn't add the translation. That's why I was just creating my separate PowerPoint. But I couldn't do with the speed, so that's why it just took some time. So sorry if someone can read from Bhagavad Gita.
I can read.
Go ahead, Maharaj.
Having accepted strict vows, some become enlightened by sacrificing their possessions, and others by performing severe austerities, by practicing the yoga of eightfold mysticism, or by studying the Vedas to advance in transcendental knowledge.
Thank you, Mataji. So, certain people perform that Patanjali yoga, Ashtanga yoga, which is being talked about. So, all these yogis are faithfully engaged in different types of sacrifice and are seeking a higher taste of life. So, one is Dravamaya Yajna, which is sacrificing their possession in the form of various kinds of charities. These are the people, what they do is they realize whatever their money they have, they open hospitals, they open charitable organization from that perspective. So that's what we see. Open various kind of charitable institution like Dharmashala or Annakshetra, Ratathidala, which is basically the Dharamshala and all that stuff. Open many hospital, old age homes, and similar charitable foundation mean for distributing food, education, and material treatment free to the poor. That's one kind of sacrifice one perform. Now the second one is the Tapomaya Yajna for higher elevation in life or promotion to higher planets. We briefly covered that in the beginning of the class. Within the universe, voluntarily accept many kind of austerities such as Chaturmasya, and I can't figure out the other word here in Sanskrit, but people perform those austerity. Why do they perform austerity? Not that they realize the platform of soul, but they realize there is a higher life awaiting into heavenly planets or higher loka, even to Brahma loka. So they perform austerity so that they can enjoy later. Like for an example, these people of course follow Chaturmasya also, right? So they follow Chaturmasya. Why? Because it pleases the demigod and they can be elevated to the higher planet. So that's the Tapomaya. So these processes entail severe vows, rigid rules, and sacrifice comforts for life. For an example, under the Chaturmasya vow, the candidate does not shave for 4 months during the year, which is July to October. He does not eat certain foods, does not eat twice in a day, or does not deform, which is kind of little difficult in today's day, but there are people who still follow that one. So that's the second one. Third one is a yogagnya. What is that? Engages themselves in different kind of mystic yogas, which is what we are talking about briefly here, like the Patanjali system for merging into the existence of absolute, which is going to the Brahman Jyoti platform, right? And some travel to all the sanctified places for pilgrimage. These are sacrifices for certain type of perfection in the material world. The last one, which is the Swadhyaya Yajna, what is that? Engage themselves in studies of different Vedic literature, especially the Upanishad and Vedanta Sutra or Sankhya philosophy. And Krishna consciousness is transcendental because these are indirect processes. Versus Krishna consciousness, it's a direct service of Supreme Lord. One can only be attained, that can be attained only by the mercy of the devotees. One cannot say, I came to Krishna consciousness because I perform any of that. Sorry. Bhakti means it comes through the mercy of devotees. Krishna's mercy is not easy to directly get. In some cases, it is there, but it is coming through the devotees who are actually practicing and who somehow come in the life of the karmis, or come in the life of some atheist people, and they become bhaktas. So many examples, like Srila Prabhupada. He came to America. People had no desire to actually take up Krishna consciousness. They had no desire to take up spirituality. But he intervened and he prayed, and that's how even those hippies who had so much addiction about everything else one can think be other than the dharma, they actually became great devotees. That's the beauty of Krishna consciousness from that perspective. Any questions so far?
No, Prabhuji.
Okay, thank you. So, action that is performed as a sacred duty, as a dedication to God, who is independent, all powerful, and omniscient, alone is true action. Doing everything for the pleasure of the Lord. Such an action which is performed as a sacrifice does not lead to bondage. Why? Because I'm not doing it for I, me, and mine, which is the biggest disease in material world. As long as I do things for myself, I have to come to this material world again and again and again. But when I offer the fruits of the activity to Krishna, that becomes prasad. That does not create bondage in this life. So action performed with the sole purpose of pleasing God without desire and attachment themselves are sacrifices. What is the sacrifice? Pleasing God without desire and attachment. I'm doing it for the pleasure of Lord. For an example, eating as a sacrifice. Our body is a means for serving God. It should be kept in a fit condition. So what should we eat? We should offer whatever we are eating to Krishna first. That becomes sin free, and we will not get the karma out of it. This is the most important part of takeaway class today. Please, let's practice that. Offer everything to Krishna before you eat. This even eating without attachment becomes a form of sacrifice. In this case, there is no scope of excitement or perversion of the mind. Eating food or any other routine activities or light done in such a healthy frame of mind are counted by the Gita as but versions of sacrifice. So not that we have to perform the yajna in the fire, but actually controlling our mind and senses, even offering everything to Krishna first and eating. Right? That is what is being spoken here. And what does sacrifice Gita teach? Gita teaches us to go from narrow life of I and mine, and living a life for the sake of others. It gives a wider dimension to yajna than sacrificing to attain some wildly pleasures. Like I was just few minutes back when I was preparing for the class, I was just sitting under a tree because there was a lot of sun. So I was just sitting under a tree, and I was thinking about what do trees do? They give you fruits, they give you shade. They're not expecting anything from us. What can I do for the tree? But that's such a beautiful aspect, which is getting away from I mind concept, which is very important. That one has to have the activity. One the balanced form of life is to actually engage in the service of God, given some dedicated hours. Like I was just talking to someone the other day. There are certain institutions where whatever position you may be, even if you're a CEO, you have to give at least 1 year, complete 1 year to the temple, not doing anything else. And I was thinking, wow, this is great. We hardly give 1 or 2 hours on Sundays, and rest of the times, yeah, it's life is going on. But one has to actually come to the platform where certain percentage of our life should be given as a charity to others, which means doing something for others, which is extremely important here. An usual yajna as animal is sacrifice, like people do that. That's not what is being spoken here. Religion should pervade our whole life. Whatever we do from dawn to dusk is nothing but a form of worship of God. Whether we are working, whether we are cooking, whatever we are doing, it should be an offering to God. Like this guy, what you see on the right hand side, he thinks everything is around me. But actually, real yajna is to actually come to the platform where we realize that Krishna is the goal of my life, and revolving everything in our life, thinking about Krishna, chanting Krishna's name, and looking for ways to serve and give Krishna to others. That's the point. I think what's the time right now? 4:50. Can we cover one more verse? Is that okay with everyone?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay. Apane juvati pranam,
Pane Jyoti
Jyoti
Pranam
Pranam
pranipanam tatha pare,
प्राणिपानं तथा
Pranipanam
परे
Tatapare
pranapanati vidva,
प्राणाप्राणगतिरुद्ध्वा
Pranagati Vidra
pranayam prarayanaha,
प्रणायां पारवरय
Paravata
apare niyataharaha,
अपरे नियताहारा
prananan praneshu juvati.
प्राणप्राणेषु जुह्वति
Mataji, can you read the translation?
Yeah. Still, others who are inclined to the process of breath restraint to remain in trance practice by offering the movement of the outgoing breath into the incoming and the incoming breath into the outgoing, and thus at last remain in trance, stopping all breathing. Others, curtailing the eating process, offer the outgoing breath into self as a sacrifice.
This is going into more details about how the breathing has to be done on the platform of Ashtanga. So, what you see in the beginning, practice as Hatha Yoga, different postures we practice. And then the second is system of yoga of controlling breathing process. This is called as pranayam. So, goal of pranayam or Hatha Yoga is to control the senses, increase longevity. Yogis wants to achieve spiritual perfection in one life only, therefore needs increased lifespan for perfection in spiritual realization, because our lives are so short. How much we can do in our life? So that's why they want to increase the longevity, so that they want to perfect in one life only, to help in spiritual advancement. And how to practice pranayam, which is being described, that this practice involves controlling the airs within the body so as to reverse the direction of their passage, which is apana vayu goes downwards, the prana vayu goes upward, and antaka and rachaka, which is equilibrium state and offering the exhaling breathing into the inhale breath. Complicated for me to explain. But what you see on the right hand side is Krishna consciousness is transcendental, because it's a direct service to Supreme Lord. You do not have to do this explicitly. Krishna consciousness can only be attained by the mercy of devotee, which we covered, automatically controls all the senses by engaging in Krishna consciousness activities, which is offering boga and various activities from that side. Any questions on this translation? This is talking about those different Patanjali yoga system, which is yama, which is following restraining, which is what is being defined as no hurting, ahimsa, satya, asatya, which is non-stealing, brahmacharya, which is sensory control. This is first part. Then the rest of the things start. Then second is niyama, which is purity, containment, austerity, study, and surrender. Then you actually start asana. But today, first two are skipped. They are directly talking about asana, or directly want to talk about asana, even directly going to pranayam. Want to talk about pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, samadhi, that's not there in the picture at all. Right? Like you see here, Hanumanji, who has Ashta Siddhi. So these are basically talking about Ashta Siddhi and Navadidis and Siddhis mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam is talking about that in detail. I can share those slides if anybody wants to doubt till that. And summary of different sacrifice that leads to transcendental knowledge is what is being spoken here. One is deity worship, sacrifices into Brahman, which is what we talked about. These are the two. 126 we covered unadulterated brahmachari or regulated grasta. This is kind of a summary what we discussed. Then in 27 we talked about Ashtanga yoga. 28 is specifically dive into more of Ashtanga yoga, talking about the yama, which is yama and niyama, which is charity, austerity, yoga yajna, study of scriptures, and hatha yoga and pranayam. That's what we covered till verse 29. Any comments or questions? I think this is the last slide. I don't want to go much on this. 29, we will cover the 30th verse next week. Any comments?
I think I got two main points. One is to control senses, and second is to offer everything to Krishna whenever we start eating. So that's something new.
Very nice. Thank you so much, Mataji. Very beautiful. Anything else someone wants to add?
Prabhuji,
Yeah.
you said, yeah, go ahead, Mataji, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was saying that, yeah, when we talk about the yoga, so basically the human body is a powerhouse of all energy points. I believe there are about critical 108 energy points. So
Mm-hmm.
that kind of helps your metabolism, your body
Yes.
balance, which
Yes.
kind of ultimately helps you with balancing your senses as well. So that's why the yoga basically is like, again, in yoga we talk that the most critical is seven chakras.
Mm.
Opening of seven chakras is basically those energy points which kind of gives you the boost, and boost in the sense not from a physicality standpoint but from a mental capacity as well. I
Mm.
think that's
Yes.
what we're talking about the devotion karma yoga, and this is the yoga itself that we are talking about, how it helps you into the spiritual life. Because if your body is balanced, then you are able to achieve that spirituality. It helps
Yes.
you achieve.
Yes, that is the specific part we covered in Ashtanga Yoga because they want to perfect their life in one lifetime itself. And they go through this breathing control and all that stuff to basically increase the longevity of life so they have a higher time to actually perfect their life, which is actually an indirect process of bhakti, but an indirect process to attain Krishna. But direct process is irrelevant. However, it's not that I should ignore my life, but even if someone practice a very healthy life, they still leave body way earlier. So based on, however, we have like Prahlad Maharaj, he was at the age of 5. He actually told his friends that one should take up Krishna conscious life. One should practice Krishna Bhakti Yoga. Why? Because we don't know how long we will live. Based on our karma, certain things are already decided, so we can take care from certain perspective, but still even those people who follow a healthy lifestyle, they get a lot of weird diseases today, which is the point, which is understanding the different options available and be smart enough to choose the right option. How should I actually perfect my life? Which is crystal clear, we all want the perfection of life, and now which one to choose, what are the options are there, it's very important for us to know. Then we can come to the conclusion, not that because I mentally chose or emotionally chose a certain path because I felt this is the easy thing. No, we understand other processes and pick up the one which is the right choice. Thank you so much for adding that point, Mataji. Anything else you want to add?
No, nothing more.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else wants to add?
Probably there are many good things I think I personally got that there are many goals of life: controlling senses, gaining transcendental knowledge, devotional service. But all of the results of all of this goal is realization of Brahma. Then we talked about sacrifices, Ashtanga yoga, and pranayam. But I think you mentioned a very good point that ultimate goal is to satisfy the Supreme Lord Krishna, because if he's happy, everything else is taken care of. So that's a very good point I got out of it.
Thank you, bro. Options are there on the table for all of you. I'm Krishna gives you all the options. Krishna is giving those options to Arjuna as well. Oh, you want Ashtanga Yoga? Here is Ashtanga Yoga. So if you want to practice, you will attain ultimate perfection. There is no doubt about it. But the question is, are you willing to do that? Are you willing to take care of this yama, niyama, and all that stuff? Difficult. So again, I'm not trying to. The ideal leader is they put the choices on the table and then they let them choose which one you bet are better, and you are welcome to choose that.
I don't know, personally, I don't feel that it has to be one option or the other. I think these are all the things that helps you in that spiritual path. You can't be sitting at one place without any mobility and keep a devotion or bhakti. I think I feel that you got to have a balance of everything that helps you get to the spiritual path. I don't think it's an option, as you choose option one, option two. I mean, that's my
No,
view.
this is a good call out because what you're trying to say is certain niyama is important to practice bhakti yoga. So yes, certain flavors of Ashtanga yoga you may bring it in. But one point which I want to clarify, Madhaji, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that one should have be one pointed attention. We cannot be in 10 places to perform yoga. For an example, in morning I perform Ashtanga yoga, in afternoon I perform Karma yoga, in the evening I perform. We don't have so much of time and energy to do that. We have other works to take care of and other things. So one has to choose certain aspect which help you to control the senses and the mind. Like I have heard a lot of devotees actually do pranayama before started chanting because it just gives the relaxation to mind and senses. So easy to practice that way. So very good point. We can use the hybrid approach, but at the same time, percentage wise, I would say higher percentage goes to bhakti because that's a direct path, and comparatively because our lifespan is very small, we want perfection in this life, and we can't practice Ashtanga yoga completely either. Because if you, I did not go into the detail of what is the process to be followed, and I'll let you explore that. It's extremely complicated. So yes, like you brought up a point, it's a hybrid approach. At the same time, one has to understand where do I give my majority of time, because the time is limited for all of us. I think you brought up the same point. It just maybe probably I'm putting it in different words. Is that fair, Mataji?
Yeah, yep. Thank
Ah,
you.